Russia has banned diesel export because fuel is disappearing from Russian stations. Queues now stretch from kilometers and almost one-third of the country's refineries are offline. The fragile ceasefire between the United States and Iran is also collapsing after American forces hit nearly 80 targets in Iran. Tehran attacked American bases in Bahrain and Kuwait in response, and oil prices climbed back towards $80 per barrel. Meanwhile, Turkey is going stronger after the NATO summit in Ankara. Ukraine may receive a license to produce Patriot systems, and Poland will be responsible for producing Barracuda missiles. An oil superpower without fuel. Russia has banned diesel sales abroad. The list of problems facing the Kremlin is becoming longer and longer. As your instruction, Vladimir Vladimirovich, the government took the following steps to stabilize the situation on the domestic market. A complete ban on the export of gasoline and aviation fuel was also introduced, and the capacity of medium-sized and small refineries was used. I would like to point out that, despite the steps taken, the situation has only been partially stabilized. Overall, the situation remains difficult. It sounds absurd because we are talking about one of the world's biggest oil powers, a country that pumps oil across half of the globe. Despite this, Russian petrol stations now look like this. This queue near Chita was confirmed by a satellite image. It was an incredible 4.5 kilometers long, with around 600 cars waiting in it. Russia is currently importing fuel from India and Belarus, and now the Kremlin has taken another step: complete ban of diesel exports until July 31st. You already know the reason for these nervous moves. Zelensky is now confident enough to start joking around the situation.
President Putin said, I would love to meet in Moscow. And I said, I don't think, I have to put myself in his position. I don't know that he'd go to Moscow. Maybe he would. Would you go to Moscow?
It's difficult. There are a lot of Ukrainian drones there. That's right.
Interestingly, Putin recently tried to reassure everyone that there was no major problem. The gasoline shortage exists, but it is not critical. The words say one thing, but the decisions are something else. At the same time, almost one-third of Russian refineries are offline. Let's not fool ourselves. Nobody who has plenty of fuel ban its export. According to reports, the amount of oil processed in Russia has fallen to 3.95 million barrels per day. That is the lowest level in more than 2 decades. Gasoline production have fallen by around 17% compared with 1 year ago. That is why Moscow limited gasoline export, stopped aviation fuel exports so that more fuel would remain on the domestic market. I bet the military would not run out of fuel. Ordinarily, citizens will be the first people cut off from it. Kilometer-long queues are forming in front of fuel pumps. People are waiting for as long as an entire day. Conflicts are breaking out. There is no fuel. Public transport is becoming more expensive. The number of available services is falling. Russia is responsible for 11% of the world diesel transported by ship, and that supply has now disappeared from the market. The diesel margin in Europe has already climbed to $60 per barrel. You might think that Russia's neighbors would throw it a lifeline. Kazakhstan has done already the opposite. It introduced its own ban on gasoline and diesel exports, which it wants to extend until May 2027. It is also allowing cars from neighboring countries to enter only once per day, and it's searching for vehicles with additional fuel tanks to stop fuel smuggling into Russia. Importantly, India and Belarus will not completely fill this gap. At the very least, they will not be able to supply the whole of Russia. Putin is therefore facing a difficult choice: foreign currency from exports for the war or meeting Russia's own needs. What do you think? Is this the first serious crack in Russia's war economy, or only a temporary slowdown in Putin's war machine? Let me know in the comments. States. Hormuz is burning again. Is this the end of the fragile ceasefire between the United States and Iran? More than 80 targets were bombed in only a few hours. Is this how the arrangement between the United States and Iran ends? US Central Command reported that dozens of targets has been hit. All of this was a response to Iranian attacks on 3 ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Powerful precision strikes on Iranian territory took place during the night of July 7 into July 8. They were a response to Iranian attack on 3 commercial ships, including the Qatar LNG carrier and a Saudi supertanker. The ships were supposed to be traveling through the southern corridor protected by the Americans. Iran did not admit responsibility for the attack, but for months it has threatened anyone who tried to avoid its control over the route. And that was enough for Trump to finally lose patience.
And they're a bunch of scum, you want to know the truth. They're scum. And so we don't like them. I don't like them. And they're evil people, and it's the denuclearization of Iran. And we're going to denuke it. We're not going to let them because they're crazy.
These words from Donald Trump, spoken shortly after he joined the NATO summit in Ankara, made it look as US President believed he had no other choice. As we can see, Iran is both a difficult opponent and a difficult negotiation partner. The attack took place while the funeral ceremonies for Ayatollah Ali Khamenei were continuing for another day. It is not surprising that the American attack was met with a strong response, because American bases in Bahrain and Kuwait were set on fire by Iranian strikes. Iran declared, "We will not allow the United States to interfere in matters connected with the management of the Strait of Hormuz." Tensions are spreading across the whole region. Iran claims that in retaliation it attacked 85 American military facilities in neighboring Bahrain and Kuwait. The ceasefire, which was already hanging by a thread, has fallen apart in front of our eyes. This conflict is therefore escalating, but for now it remains focused on the Strait of Hormuz and American bases in the Gulf. The situation is very dynamic because both sides are responding with further attacks. While trying to reach an agreement, Tehran used attacks on shipping to show its bargaining power in negotiations with Washington. The United States is responding to these aggressive actions, even though the Americans probably do not want to make the situation even worse. The problem is that whether we want it or not, if we are not military prepared and do not have the real strength to defeat this regime and prevent it from carrying out such actions, this is where the situation will be heading. I don't think President Trump truly wants to start the war again. He may be forced to do so, but I don't think he actually wants it. Analysts remain divided, and it seems that nobody really wants to say it out loud that this war has entered into another phase.
Typical Trump today, narcissist, undiplomatic, and mentally unbalanced. This is what we saw Trump today. Here's a statement that the MOU is over, actually is a fatal shot at the memorandum of understanding. If Trump was to honor his commitments, why did he send more weapons and more military forces to Iran's proximity?
Trump now claims that he is a target on Iran's list. He also left the summit in Ankara on a different model of Air Force One. When flying over a potentially dangerous area, he preferred to use an aircraft that has been tested for longer and was equipped with defensive system, because the new Air Force One does not have the missile detection systems and countermeasures. The situation is therefore once again moving out of control. The Strait of Hormuz is an artery of global energy trade, and oil prices immediately jump. By the end of Wednesday, the price of oil has come close to $80 per barrel. Investors are panicking because they remember what happens when tankers start sinking and blockades return. Everything looks the same as in February when Khamenei was killed in the first strike. Iran is weakened, but it is angry and mobilized after the funeral of its killed leader. Most importantly, it is ready to retaliate. For Europe, this means the return of higher living costs, and if the escalations go further, we risk another increase in prices. If oil rises above $100 per barrel again, the whole economy will be hit, especially because sanctions on Iranian oil returned on Tuesday. Major powers are fighting for control over shipping routes and oil, and once again, we will pay the bill. Turkey is growing stronger, and the United States has betrayed Israel. The NATO summit in Ankara brought several breakthrough decisions. Turkey has clearly strengthened its position inside the alliance. After almost 6 years, Trump is suddenly removing sanctions from Erdogan country and opening the door to American F-35 fighter jets.
We have a very good relationship. I would think that many people, I can tell you, many people, including the people sitting right here, thinks, why wouldn't we do that? We have a better relationship with Turkey, and Turkey has been in many ways much more loyal than other countries that we think would be loyal. So yeah, something certainly we would consider. It's a great plane. It's the best, currently the best plane by far. And it's certainly something we will consider, yeah.
The fighter jets are only one part of the story. During the same meeting, the American president announced that he was removing sanctions from Turkey that has strongly limited its ability to make military purchases.
I can tell you, we're going to be taking the sanctions off. Okay? I don't want him to waste his time answering that question because we're working very closely with Marco Rubio, very famous man, great Secretary of State, and with Scott Bessent, and with Pete and everybody else. We're going to be taking the sanctions off. It's time to do that.
Let's start with what these sanctions actually were. America imposed them on the Turkish office responsible for buying weapons and on its leaders, not on the whole country. More precisely, the sanctions cut the Turkish defense industry off from American technology. Among the things, they banned loans for more than $10 million from American banks. They froze assets in the United States and removed visas from 4 officials for working for Turkey. Presidency of Defense Industry knows as the SSB. You may ask why this happened. The reason was Turkey purchase of the Russian S-400 air defense system for almost $2.5 billion. A decision Turkey made in 2017. The S-400 in the Russian system with a powerful radar. The American concern this was if the S-400 operated in the same country as the American F-35. It could learn how to detect the aircraft, and they collected information could go directly to Russia. The Americans punished Turkey twice for this single purchase. First, in 2019, they removed Turkey from the F-35 program, even though it has already paid more than $200 million and was supposed to receive 100 aircrafts. 1 year later came to second punishment, CAA-TSA sanctions limiting Turkey access to purchase in the United States. Donald Trump himself signed them. Now the same man is removing those sanctions. Meanwhile, the Russian S-400 has remained in Turkey for almost 6 years. So what has changed? It turns out that the issue of Iran helped Turkey more than anything else.
Turkey has been a great ally for us. They know Iran very well, and they know the problems with Iran. But they've been very instrumental, along with a couple of other countries, of helping. They could have gotten into the fight. And I hear some people saying about their relationship with Israel. They could have gotten into the fight.
It looks as though Turkey may soon receive another opportunity to prove himself, because the war with Iran is returning. Trump arrived at the summit in Ankara angry with his allies over the operation in Iran, while praising Turkey's position above everybody else. Of course, there was also criticism to the worst allies.
We didn't need help, but I was really testing. I wanted to see whether or not they'd be there. And the answer is, I spoke to Germany, I spoke to France, spoke to UK, spoke to Italy, I didn't speak to Spain. Spain is a wasted cause. We don't want to do any trade business with Spain anymore, by the way. I'd like you to cut it out. Spain is a terrible partner in NATO. They don't participate, they don't pay. I don't want anything to do with Spain. Cut off all trade with Spain, please.
In short, classic Trump. Trump also returned to the subject of Greenland and the threats of withdrawing American forces from Europe. At this stage, nobody is surprised anymore that protection is something Trump treats as product for sale. I suspect that Trump is mainly flattering Erdogan's ego because under the 2020 NDAA, the United States cannot sell the fire jets while Turkey still keeps the Russian S-400 system. Congress also clearly reminded Trump and his team about this rule for some time ago. Unless Turkey gets rid of the Russian equipment, we will see how this develops. The close relationship between Trump and Erdogan during this meeting was obviously not welcome in Israel. Their authorities felt offended by the move or perhaps even betrayed.
I think that everybody understands that notwithstanding the personal friendship that President Trump has with Erdogan, it doesn't make Turkey a friendly or a friendly state to the United States. To the contrary, it's a regime that's infected with the Muslim Brotherhood, which hates the United States. He harbors Hamas, the Hamas terrorists. He supports them. He finances them. He's thrown his opponents in jail, all of them. He throws more journalists in jail than anyone can understand. So he's not exactly a model ally of the United States. But even worse than that, he threatens Greece, a NATO ally. He occupies half of Cyprus, another NATO country. And the most important thing, and I put it right on the table, he threatens to destroy my country, the one and only Jewish state.
For Israel, a strong Turkey is a huge problem because Israel based its advantage mainly on controlling of the air. Turkish F-35 would take away that advantage. Russia is also in a difficult position. It will either lose Turkey as a customer for S-400 or it will block the transfer of the system and show that NATO ally is actually still on Russia's leash. This is obviously not a gesture of friendship between Turkey and United States. It is a part of huge deal Trump is making with the whole world. In this way, the American president is sending a message to the world who is loyal and help us. Those countries are rewarded. Interestingly, Turkey was not the only country to receive a present from Uncle Sam. Ukraine received one as well.
So one of the things we're going to be talking about is we're going to give a license to you to make Patriots. That's pretty cool, right?
Very.
This way you can't complain that we're not giving them enough. I say, make them yourself. We haven't informed the company of that yet, but that'll work out all right.
This is also end of nothing more than promises, but it appears that the United States could gain a lot from this move. The truth is that Patriot missiles are currently in short supply around the world, while Ukraine produces quickly and has people and materials needed to do it. Some of this production could go directly into American storage sites, which must be refilled first. Ukraine will probably pay a high price for the privilege of producing them inside the country. Either way, by moving some of the work abroad, Washington could quickly fill its own shortages. At the same time, this could become another tool of pressure on Russia from the United States. It was a very successful summit for Ukraine because it also completed free drone agreements with Denmark, Netherlands and Estonia. As for Poland, the Americans will produce Barracuda missiles.
Anduril is announcing a deal to build their new Barracuda missiles, which is a very highly sophisticated, fast missile, and we're doing that for Poland.
It is difficult to avoid the impression that this NATO summit looked a little like Trump's award ceremony. Turkey regained a path to the F-35. Ukraine received a license to produce Patriots, and Poland received Barracuda production. The rest traditionally listened to another lecture about how ungrateful and worthless they were. The question is whether treating allies this way strengthens North Atlantic alliance or turns NATO into Trump's private estate. Let me know in a comment.